Hey, hi all. So, good afternoon, first of all, and happy Dasra and happy festival to all. So, today I'm going to be like before that, are you able to hear my voice? Can you confirm anybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So, welcome to Fratello classes. Today, I'm going to be starting a first class for our internship, which is nothing but project flow, or we called project architecture. Okay. So, basically, whenever we want to start a new project or a new application or new software, anything it might be software or application or application website, whatever it is we call this. Okay. So if you want to start that, first we need to understand how the data flow happens from one end to another end, or one application to another application. That is very important, so that only we can build applications such a way that it may do the communication properly to transfer the data from one page to another page. So for that only, today I will explain how the data flow will happen from one area to another area, and also in each side what are the different technologies or tools we may use. So that part I will cover. To the continuation class will be taken on Monday as usual, same time. Okay, so but today I'm focused on one part of the data flow. So this is also we technically called as MVC or MBT architecture, or we called client server architecture. So whatever the name we called for the data flow architecture, same will be shown here. But we require to understand how the things will be happen when we go for starting a project individually or as a team. If you are starting a project, how the things will be happen. So that I think will be covered one by one. So first we'll focus on like as I mentioned, data, and then we'll focus on complete life cycle, development life cycle, and where we'll cover the two types of models. Like one is our traditional model called waterfall, the second one agile model. So how that both are differentiated each other, and how the development process will be taken care as part of the respective models, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of each model, we'll see thoroughly, so that when we will start any project, when in any company or with your own or any place, so what is the model we have to choose? As for that, pros and cons we can decide. So that will be covered in upcoming classes. And then I may focus on how the end-to-end application development will be happening in the real time. Like example, when we got a requirement and to deliver to the respective requirement to the customer or client, so how the things will be happens, and how the team will work, and where we will deploy the application, and how the testing will happen. So that all will be covered in the next classes. So these are the few classes I will cover first of all. And parallelly, as I mentioned, so next week we'll also start the project development classes. Like these are theory classes, and parallel we start practical classes for development. This theory class is common for all the like students who are enrolled for internship, but practical class will be differentiated from Java to Python. So Python students, there is a different time slot will be there, and Java student different time slot will be there. Okay, that will be separate, but this theory is common for everybody. Okay, so this is how the initial schedule will go out. Okay, so once installations and everything done, we'll see next plan what. But next week mostly I am planning to cover whatever just now I explained the topics, along with the environment setup, because which is more important to start practice or practical work on your own once we start the project classes. That is software and tool installation. So what are the softwares and that is the hardware and software requirements we so that I will explain, and after that we'll go for installation for each domain wise. Like example, Java what we required, Python what we required, and we'll show that each and every installation in the class practically. And if time permits, you can do in the class itself the installation part from your side also parallelly. Otherwise, we'll share the recording videos also for every class. Using that, you can also start installing. But before starting our practical project class, make sure that everyone should install the environment in your laptop. Otherwise, you can't start practice. And again, I'm just, it's a first class reiterating. by just listening the class or by just reading the theory, it doesn't make any understanding or make any add-on advantage for you, because I can straight away openly tell that. So these theory classes you can also listen from YouTube or some online channels also. There is nothing is different, right? You can able to get free of cost only. But you enrolled here means it's only the main advantage you have to take practicality. So once you start the practical things, then only you can understand and you can able to implement the things. Otherwise, until that, we can't also help you to inject something to your brain. It's not like a ready-made pizza process, right? So we can't go and pay the amount and get the something in our brain. We can't do that until unless you start practice, you start implement in your laptop. We can't do anything. So that's the very crucial part in your internship time. So please do installation immediately, like once from outside class is completed, and then start practice your side, so that you will get opportunity to ask the doubts and you can clarify the doubts instead of doing something later. Okay, that is a kind of suggestion I can give you initially, but do follow the things. And other suggestion I can give is be regular and what do you call, be attentive. I mean to say, if you see, definitely as a committed, we'll give for every class recording class. Okay, for recording classes we are providing for every class what we are giving to you. But if you attend lively, maybe you can get more concept in short time, and also you may clarify the things also at that point of time only. Okay, so that's way you can maybe you can join the class regular basis instead of waiting for the recording class. Okay, so that if you doesn't have, see, sometimes it happen, right? We may not have such kind of what we can say, that opportunity. I mean to say, due to personal reason or emergency, we may not listen. So at that time, definitely you can go for recording class, but my recommendation is always good to go for live classes. Okay, so this is a few suggestions I can give, and yeah, without late, we can start our today class. So before that, once again, to all, happy Dasara. And before that, just I will break for 1 minute. Any starting questions you can ask me. Otherwise, I will go to our regular concept. If everything good, I will go. Otherwise, just maybe just I'm going. Maybe if you have any what do you call, what I can say, that first minute questions instead of last minute questions, we can say first minute questions. Anything you just straight away ask. Otherwise, I will go to the class. I hope everybody able to hear my voice, and I hope everybody able to follow my class, right? And if you are not able to speak, you can also ping me in the chat so that I can respond. Can anyone confirm? Is it everything going like I mean to say audible and visible? My screen is visible to you, right? I already shared the screen. If you're not able to speak, can you confirm in the chat, anybody? Okay, great, great. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start my class. Okay. Yeah. So as I mentioned already, so first I will tell you how the data flow will happen in the real time or in any application. Instead of real time, you can say any application. It may be Google, it may be Facebook, or it may be what you call Flipkart, anything. So any web application you are using. See, in your daily life, in your mobile, you have so many applications, right? Like Flipkart, Amazon, Netflix, Instagram, and we have Facebook and Google, and also you may use Book My Show. So these are all the different applications you are using in the mobile as well as internet, right? So for all these applications, the architecture will be same. There is no much difference. All are following the same architecture. So and same kind of versatile of the application. That is what I'm going to teach you today. Okay. So first of all, I will start from our side. Let's take consider as a user. Okay, so let's take I want to use the Google. First I will show you a kind of browser application, then we'll come to our individual explanation. Okay, so that you can understand easily. Let's take example. There is an application called, let's take, I'm taking demo. Let's take, so this is one of the e-commerce website. Okay, assume that, just imagination. Okay, it's a kind of website which is similar to your Flipkart. Okay, now let's take example, I want to do the register. Okay, I want to do the register. So if when you click on the register link, see, you are able to see one form which is used to ask you to enter some data. Registration means we are giving our information to the application, so the application will store your information into the database, so that whenever you click on login, so whenever you are giving the same information, let's take example. If you see here, I given gender, first name, last name, email, password, and confirm password. Okay, if I'm giving this information, when I click on register, the data whatever we entered, it will given to the server or the system, what backend will be there, and the system what it will do, it will store the data persistently or permanently into some storage, some area or some drive, we can say that. Why it is storing? Because when the same user coming back to use the system or come back for utilizing the same application, again you no need to give the same information again and again. Why? Because it's a time-based process. I already given one time, right? Why should I give it again? So to make sure to avoid such kind of duplication work, they're storing this data someplace, and they're comparing now. Now they're not asking all the information. They're asking for login only, email and password. That's it. See, email and password. So if you're giving the email and password, what the system will do now? Again, it will read the data. Let's take example. I entered xyz@something@gmail.com. Now the system will read this data and it will compare now with the data which is already there in the database or the some file storage. Previously, whatever the data we given, it is already stored, right? Now it will compare the data. If the data is matching, I mean to say, if the whatever the email and password you given in the login page, if the data already in the database, then it allow you to enter into the system and you can do some purchase. But if it is not matching with the data what we exist, so it not allow you to do directly enter. Now it is asking to registration, right? So this process pretty much sure about everyone, right? Because your daily basis you are doing registration login, right? So this concept you know. So the same way for every screen, for every link, for every form, what we are able to see in the regular applications will follow the same architecture. So that is what we call client server architecture, three-tier architecture, or we can say that MVC architecture. So the architecture names differently we spell out, but all that internally telling that there is some three layers of application we generally using. The first layer is we call, so if you see the first layer, so this is actually your application, like your, I can say your laptop, okay, your desktop, whatever it is, okay. So now this layer will responsible for showing the data to the customer. That means whatever the images, whatever the data we are having, so it will can able to see the end user. Basically, as a user, whenever you want to use the application, he can come and open the laptop and he can see the, I mean that open the website and open the software, he can able to see the data. So this is what we call front end. We call it, simpler words I can say that this is called front end. So basically when we technically called as front end or presentation layer, presentation layer. So this is what we call front end or sorry, front end or presentation layer. Okay, it means, so it is generally representation for displaying something or reading something. It doesn't do any processing. Basically it's only meant for execution of, I mean the displaying or showcasing the output, this particular layer. Okay, front end layer I can say that. And here if you clearly observe that the customer, whoever using this application, like customer or user we can say that, so this user will always see this particular presentation here only. What internally happening, let's take example previous case. If you see, when I enter the data and when I click on register, so internally what happens, I'm not sure how the data is going and how the server is acting upon the storing the data into the database and how the database is executing. I'm not aware as a user that all activities, just I'm looking whether registration completed or not, the successful message coming or not, that's it. Okay, once I got the successful message, immediately I will go to the login and I will do the login. So that means front end does not show any logical implementation. It will only responsible for reading the input from the customer and showing the, not giving, displaying the response, or I can say that output to the customer. So it's just an interface, I can say that an interface where it will read the data and where it will display the data, whatever we given or whatever we or requested, I can say that. Okay, so that layer we call presentation. That's why we called it is a UI layer. I mean to say it's technically we call user interface. Okay, so we called it as a user interface. So now user interface is a screen. That means if you go here, so this is one user interface. If you see this particular page, and if you click on books, assume that. So this is another interface. So this is another interface. These are all we call user interfaces. And the another name for the user interface we have web page. Okay, so we also called as web page for that particular page what you are able to see over in the screen. So either we call user interface or we call web page. Okay, so now this web page or user interface we call front end design or front end application, which is mostly interacting with the customer or which is mostly used by the customer. So that means the logic internally, however it will execute, it doesn't care about the customer, but how you are displaying the data, how you are showcasing the interface to interact with the customer, it's very important. Otherwise user may not use our application for a long time. That's what the we call user experience. So when we talks about user experience, it covers like how user feeling to use the application, how easily customer can easily use the application, or how frequently customer using the application. These all factors comes into the picture. So that's why if you see recent days, every application more interactive and more effective nature, like it's more colorful, I can say that, instead of black and white or instead of something very legacy. One of the example I will tell you. See, if you giving coming to this site only, see, it's a very simple legacy application, right? But if you see the Flipkart, if you just open the Flipkart, how it looks like, you know, right? So it's a very interactive and very what we can say that eye attractive. That means if any user coming to the Flipkart, definitely the Flipkart people, what it will do, they will attract people to purchase something. So if you see, these discounts only, if you follow the Flipkart regular basis, just 1 week before they given a big billion offers, like through regarding the Dasara offers, right? Now again they started big shopping also. See that. So why they're starting? It's not required, right? They given just 1 week before, they given a lot of discounts to the customer. A lot of customers also purchased. Assume that. Why again immediately they are giving? So it's a kind of marketing strategy. Again, see, some people missed, some people looking for some more offers, then they will come back and do the again shopping. And also we know, right, as a customer, if you look that offer, then our mind will be attracted generally. Okay, what is offer, we have to search. Maybe through that we may purchase some other item also, right? That is the basic idea. Likewise, see these icons, if you see eye contact icons, I can say that. So instead of just a plain content, if you see this website and this, see, this is a plain website. If user coming kind of this website, he may not just look for the kind of products also, right? So that is what important in real-time projects also. So this is technically we called customer experience, or we call user experience. Okay, user experience will comes under these all areas. Okay, now all together whatever I drafted here, if you see here, so whatever I drafted here, so this all together, okay, all user experience and user interface and web page designing, so all together will comes under one umbrella. Okay, so that is only technically we call UI UX designing generally. Okay, UI or UX, there is a separate domain will be there, that is UX or UI designing. So here, what do you mean by designing, sir? Or we call, say, web designing, UI designing, user interface designing, or website designing. We use the word commonly called designing. So what do you mean by designing? So to make the web page interactable to the customer, so that's what we call web design or designing. So before implementing actual logic, I mean to say before implementing the server or database, first we have to design a page something looks like this one. If you see, it shows image and title, rating, followed by active
క్లాసులు అంటే
content. So
అవుతుంది
అటువంటిప్పుడు సినిమా చూడొచ్చు
చిన్నలు చిన్నలు
ఇక అవే ఒకసారి చూడకుండా చూస్తే కాదా
hello, any doubt, Nana? Anybody? Any doubt? Shall I? Okay, great. So now whatever I told you, right, these are all, this card looks like, if you see something like this is some design with respect to Diwali designed the card design, if you see here. Okay, so these are all comes under the designing part. This is technically called as, we call UI design or web designing. So we also called it is web designing also. Okay, so this web designing consists creation of the web page and what we can say, make the web page more effective and attractive, I can say that. So the both the activities comes under the designing part only. Okay, so now to develop such kind of web page or to develop such kind of user interface, we require to learn some languages. Okay, such kind of languages are only here. If you consider, first one is HTML. Okay, so basically HTML will help us to create the first of all web page. Okay, and it is a static web page, I can say that. So it is used to create the static web page. That means it doesn't do any interaction, just it will create a skeleton of the application. So first, the very most component basically will use to create a web page is HTML. And after that HTML, once the skeleton created, I mean to say, what is what created and what is the elements to be displayed, what is the content to be displayed, that part will be assumed that completed. Okay, so now we want to make sure that that should be colorful, effective, animated, and aligned, I can say that. So these properties, if you want to implement, like I want to make it beautiful theme with nice colors, or I want to make it some hover effects. Like example, if you see here, if you see this kind of effect, and if you hover on it, so some effects are coming, right? See, if you hover on it, some shadow is coming, if you see here. Similarly, if you hover on it, some, see that hover on button color is changing, right? So these kind of effects, if you want to apply to any web page in real time, so we will use a component called CSS and its framework called Bootstrap. Okay, so what the difference between CS and Bootstrap means? CSS is a language where you should create everything by scratch manually, but whereas Bootstrap is a framework. That means it is a CSS framework where it has lot many styles already inbuilt available, so that directly we can use in our application. Let's take example, you want to build a card style. Just before I show you, right? So like card, so such kind of cards we can do. So styles, animations, and effects basically. So these are all we can apply by using CSS and Bootstrap. And so these kind of styles, as I mentioned right just now, like see, hover on effect, these are all we can do. So button effect, and if you see this card, so these are all available in the Bootstrap that we can use directly in our application to make it more fast and more attractive in the shorter time. So for that only we are using CSS. Okay, so these three components is responsible for designing of the application. So whatever the application we have on the web page, so if you want to design that application in user attractive manner, we will use these three components. Okay, so this is what we call web designing or template designing. Web templates we call it template designing or web designing. So but for that we use this particular component. So web designing or we called also template designing. Okay, template design. For all these we will use this particular three components. And coming to the UX means, as I mentioned, right, it's a user experience. So it's a kind of ideology how user likes. So that for that there is no programming required. Basically sketches they will draw. So for draw the sketch we have a tools like SketchUp, Photoshop, and Corel Draw. So these are the different tools which are available in the market to draw the pictures, I can say that. So that is how the UX will be comes under the picture. Okay, and now
Hello?
coming to the next point,
Hello,
whatever the
చెప్పే.
front end we completed designing, now if you want to do some kind of validations or some kind of front end activities, we will use a scripting language called, one of the popular is JavaScript basically. And JavaScript is a language or client-side scripting which will help you to develop, or which will help you to write a client-side validations. Or client-side scripting means if you want to run the JavaScript, you don't require any server. The standalone in your laptop is required. that to one browser, maybe Chrome or Firefox, anything. So any browser, if it is available in the mission, that can be executed JavaScript. It doesn't require any server. Okay, so that's why based on the JavaScript in the market, so many frameworks came into the picture. That means front-end scripting language, like if you are aware, Angular or React or Vue.js. So these are all different, Node.js, Backbone.js. So likewise, there is a lot many frameworks came into the picture to write the scripts in the client side without having any server need, standalone application, I can say that. So if you want to develop the any standalone applications, so we can use directly this front end only, no need of any server or anything. Okay, so this is all together front end, Nana. So this all part we call front end application development, and here we required only software, as I mentioned, right, which is the only software we require, browser. So this is the only software we require, like Chrome, Firefox, Edge. So these are the softwares which are required to execute your front end logic. Okay, so this is all about your front end. Now, whatever, as I mentioned already, whatever the data be given in the forms, it may be registration form, it may be insertion form, it may be order form, whatever it is, we are, as a customer, as a user, we given some data to the system. Now the system has to store that data in some place, right? So that place only technically we call database. So what we call that one, we call that is database. That is the back end layer we called. Okay, so that is the front end what we explained. Now we going for back end. Okay, so are we called storage? So that is database or we call storage. So now whatever the data we given or whatever the information we given in the application through the front end, okay, that entire data has to store someplace, has to we can persist someplace. So that storage only we technically call as generally database. But as you know, we have different formats also. We are not restricted to only one point, I mean to say one type. We have so many, but out of that I'm selecting database. Basically I will tell you what are the different types also. One second. Okay, so see here. So in storage, in general basics ways, we have two types. Okay, one is files. Okay, another one is, as I mentioned already, database. Okay, so storage basically have the two types. One is our traditional Excel file or documents, whatever it is, and another one database. And this database will generally store our data. Okay, whatever the data we are giving, all this data will be stored in the form of tables. Okay, so whatever the user data or whatever the products data, that all data will be stored in the tables, and each table have some relation with other table to transfer the data. So likewise, all the data will be stored in this particular database only. Okay, whatever we given here the in front end data, that entire data will be stored in this particular backend database. Okay, and this database only you may have, right, some of the examples you may have, like Oracle, okay, and MySQL and DB2, Postgres. These are all different databases what we have in the market. Okay, so with respect to all these databases, anything we can use to store the data, but all the some of the paid ones, some of the source, and we are using Oracle. One of the Oracle product is called MySQL. So that is basically free source and which is equivalent to Oracle. That means it is having all the facilities which are providing by the Oracle. That's why we are going with MySQL. And but here these are all softwares. Simpler words I can speak up. That means you have to go to the Google and download the and install. That's it. But then what we were going for learning, the interactions. Like now, once you install the database, that is fine. But if you want to create a table, or if you want to retrieve the data, or if you want to delete the data, all that operations, whatever the operations you want to do, for all that operations, these all operations, we have to learn one language. So that language basically SQL. So this language will help you to do communication with this particular databases. So whenever you want to perform any operations, this language will help you to do the communication with the database. Okay, so this is front end part and this is back end. Now if these two components installed in your machine, so now the third one, there should be a mediator, there should be a interface between front end and back end. Okay, so the front end and back end will be, I mean to say, the interface between front end and back end only middle end. We called it as a middle end. Middle end only we technically called as server basically, or we call system. So this is the component will help us to read the request from the front end. That means once your task, I mean that once you given the request, so it will send the here the system, whatever the mission, if you see here, so this mission will send a request to this particular server. Okay, whatever the server we have in the middle end, so to the middle end we are sending a request, and this server will process your request. Okay, once it will read the request, it will do some process, and if required, it will communicate with the database. Similarly, the same way the response will come back to the server, and the server will show the response in the front end. So likewise, this middle end always will act as an interface between the front end and back end. That means if you want to see the some books information, the books information will be there in the database, okay, not in the server. Now the request who given? The customer. Now the server will take the request. What is the request? Okay, I want to fetch the data for the books. Now it will go to the database and will fetch all the books information and will send the data to the front end. See, it's only sending the data. Again, I'm repeating, the back end will only send the data. It does not send any styles or animations. Now this user interface will convert your data into attractable format. I mean to say, what I'm trying to explain, see, in the database we have this top offers, mobiles, TVs, this data only. We don't have this icons or this some curve style is there a background. These styles will be aligned in the front end, not in the back end. So this work will be done by front end developer. Only the data part will be only taken care by back end, that is server part. Okay, so now to develop these logic, like here also it is a mission, but it's only different server, but it is also mission, and it also has to execute some code or some what you can say that some scripts it has to execute. So for that also we should write some logic or some program or some code. So that only we call server side programming or back end programming. So for that only we may have different sets. See, here the important thing is front end and back end mostly common and similar to each other, but in the middle end we have different options. Like one of the first option is, as you know, Java. So Java combination, you can use Java, advanced Java, and Spring Boot. That all will be Java stack we can use. One of the option we have in the market. Second one, as we know, Python stack. So we can use Python stack also to develop the middle end. And the other option we have .NET stack also we have in the market, .NET technologies. Okay, and also we have PHP, and also we have Node.js, and Ruby on Rails, and Perl. Oh, very traditional, I forgot. C and CPP. These are also we consider as server side only. Okay, so these are all different technologies which are available in the market to accommodate this particular middle end server, or we called this what you call server side logic. So any of these you can learn and you can start working on the middle end. But as we know more on the market, in the current market, most of the companies are using Java and Python, and then third option will be .NET. That's why we are going to be learning this stack. But we have in the market, other than that, there is so many options in the market to develop a middle end. But out of this, these are very popular ones. That's why we are also giving an option for learning you people the application development either using Java or Python. That's why the only reason. And as you know, recent days Python is evaluating comparatively Java. Python is evaluating a little bit ahead because of data analysis, because of data science, because of machine learning and AI majorly, and generative engineering. So because of these all new domains what we have currently in the market, Python is having good growth because for all the technology, Python is a source of technology. But still more in the current IT market, there is a Java scope also is there. So there is a good market for the Java also. Okay, but as for my knowledge, .NET, PHP, the Ruby on these are very less, very specific companies only they are using the respective technology and respective source. And .NET somewhat okay, but still if you consider this downwards, it's a very less scope in the currently market. Okay, so these are all we called middle end or server side technologies, so which will help us to write a logic which will execute the server, and that server will execute the your logic. Okay, but to make sure that, as I mentioned, right, these are all server side language. That means, as I mentioned, the front end technology doesn't require any server. The browser is enough to execute your logic. I can say, as you mentioned, right, Chrome or Firefox or Edge. So these are enough. No need to install anything in your machine. But when we want to run in the backend, we require to install the server basically. Okay, so that servers only basically local servers. We mostly use Apache servers. So that is, you know, right, Apache Tomcat. This is one of the local server which is used to run the all the what do you call the applications what we develop in the server. But basically this will be used for like Java and Python, PHP, for all this Apache only. For .NET only, generally we will use this side, I will write IIS server. Okay, so this is for only .NET they are using, but Apache Tomcat common for all the other components. Okay, and coming to the tools for Java, we are using basically what we call like we are using Eclipse. Okay, and also we are using like, I mean to say, to develop the code for the Java, we are using Eclipse or JEditor or Visual Studio Code. One of commonly we are using VS Code. Okay, and similarly for Python mostly we used PyCharm, and similarly VS Code also can be used, and Jupyter Notebook and Anaconda. So these are the some of the editors we may use it for Python stack. Okay, and coming to the SQL, as I mentioned, we are using software called MySQL and the tool called SQL Yog. So this is the tool which we used for database interactions. Okay, and whatever the code which we used for database, we use this interface. I mean to say, we have to install this particular software to access the database. And for Java, Eclipse and VS Code, as we know, for Java, if I want to use JDK, first we have to use the install the JDK to install the Java. And similarly for Python, first we have to install the Python itself. These are the softwares and languages, both we have to, I mean, the consider. So language and the software we have to install to use the language. And these are editors, I can say that. So these are editors which we use it for application development to easily. Okay, and so this is how generally components will be work out. Okay, so how the front end and back end and middle end will be interact, and the data flow will be happening one to each other. So these are the different stack of technologies which will be used for generally application development. Okay, so here if you see, once we given the data, let's take example, this is the registration page. Okay, so as a customer, he enter the data and he click on the register button. Now internally this application will send a request to the server for registration along with the data whatever we given. Now this server will read all the data which is given by the front end and will store into the database table called users or customers. Now it will send back a response like, yes, I stored the data into the database, right? So that acknowledgement message will send back to the system, that is your registration successful, you can start using the application. Okay, now let's take example, customer click on login and he give an email and password. Again same way, he send a request, the data will be go there server, and now server will validate. Now initially it is stored, right? Now it won't store, it will validate. It means it will compare with the existing data whether the given email and password is there in the database or not. Now if it is there, it allow you user to get into the system, otherwise it will throw an error message, you are unauthorized user. So likewise, a simple example I've given. Okay, so likewise, for every interaction, for every what you call transaction, the same data flow will happen from the front end to back end. So same flow, I mean to say same variation application development process only we will follow as part of our application development learning also. The same way we will do the starting of understanding of the application. So this is the way how the data will flow from one end to another end. Okay, and as I mentioned, right, so next week we are make sure that like first Monday, Tuesday I will take the class on other topics what I mentioned, like SDLC model, software model, how the things will be done, and also like how the project will be come from customer and how we will deliver to the customer. That I will cover first Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday we'll give the time for set up the environment. Okay, so one day for Java, one day for Python. So we'll take the complete session for installing all the set of softwares what I listed out today. Let's take example. If you consider Python, first we'll check the browsers. I hope you are already aware that. And second, we'll go with softwares like Python. First we'll install Python software, and then we'll install the PyCharm, and then we'll install the Django, and then we'll install the database like MySQL and SQL. By that, the entire setup is completed. Similarly for Java, first we have to install the JDK, and then we have to install the Eclipse, and then database and Apache Tomcat. So likewise, first we'll go with end-to-end installation of the all the softwares which is required for your development, and then Friday will showcase you one sample project, how we will create a project in Java and Python. As I mentioned, right, that will be differentiated. That class will be Java separate and Python separate, and we'll make sure that will make you clear that how to create a application. So by that, instance environment setup will be completed. So you people maybe start your practice on sample application and from that day onwards. Okay, so this is what our basic plan of executions. So this is how we will do basically. Okay, so for today I'm signing off. So if any questions, please ask me. Otherwise we can sign off the class for today, and we'll continue the same class on Monday. Any doubts or any questions, you can ask me now. So what is the one question I got? What is the static and dynamic? See, basically, whenever your web page is not interactable, that means it is only will show the content to the customer. Like example, tutorial websites. Like there you cannot do any interaction, right? You can only read the data. News, best example. See, you have news applications, right? Way to news and some kind of daily news channels, right? So where you cannot do anything, you just read the data and you can just close the page, right? So that we call static web pages. One of the example, review websites, movie review websites also, you can able to read the reviews. That's it. You cannot do any purchase or ordering there, right? And when coming to the dynamic means, if you can do some actions on the web page, like example, very simple example, registration login, or purchasing a product, or Facebook, if you say view the post and like and dislike or comment. So if you're able to such kind of interactions, then we called it as a dynamic web page. To do the dynamic web page only, we are using the server environment. When we want to create a static web page, there is no need of server. HTML and CSS is enough to develop the static web page. I hope you clear the doubt. Kalyan, who asked the question, what is static and dynamic? So I'm already told you previously also. See, again I'm repeating, as part of internship we are covering very clearly two components. One is theory class for project development and front end designing, and second class for project development using respect to full stack. So this is very clear. Any more questions?
Sir, in Python or Java, which one have
Hmm.
more job opportunities, sir, current market?
See, to be honest, okay, fresher, it's not really the differentiation. Okay, both Java and Python have the good opportunities in the market, but only the thing, whichever you choose, whether Python or Java, be strong in that. That's the first point. Second point, but if you think about future, scope of the future, Python better than Java, because in upcoming days 99% companies are migrating gradually to the Python rather than Java. That I can say that. But currently, if you go for fresher job, both are same. Yeah. Any other doubts? Okay. I'm not getting any questions. I thought it will be clear for everybody. Happy Dasara once again. Enjoy the Dasara. Okay. And I will share this recording to you by the end of the day so that you can go through. If anybody missing, you can go there. Okay. So can you use any other platform for taking sorry, because other platform doesn't have good capability of recording, so that's why we are using WebEx. Okay, it has recording capability, so that's why Google, that regular Google Meet and things that doesn't have the recording for commercial purpose. That's why we are using this one. Okay, have a nice day. Enjoy. Bye bye. Take care. If anything is there, feel free to ping me in the WhatsApp. I'm always available to reply in the WhatsApp. Okay. Bye bye. Take care.